We're live from DuckDuckGo. So, woohoo! If I'm coming through your screens, we changed browsers, left Google in the dust, and are very proud of ourselves. Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. My name is Margaret Pennard, and I'm a historical fiction author and eclectic reader. Happy Juneteenth! It is Friday, June 19th, and that is a holiday. It was declared 5 years ago. And if you don't know the name of the holiday and what it's about, you should look it up. Let's see. Welcome. The theme that I have landed on for my celebration of Juneteenth is my own interpretation, right? Juneteenth is the date, allegedly, apocryphally, when, the marshals, the federal agents, finally got through all the squads of terrible Confederates and managed to communicate to the black folks in Texas that they were actually free. This is after the Civil War has ended. This is 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation went into effect. So they were basically getting censored out of the news and didn't know that they legally could leave. The minor detail of the Civil War. And so when I think of that experience and I think of that big struggle, that fight to break free and change a whole nation, change a mindset that's still going on, I think about what it would have been like to hear that news and to sort of process your life has changed. Like everything from now on is going to be different. Not perfect, not a bed of roses, but you have a big block moved and you're going to be making different decisions. And so today is Juneteenth, and that is celebrating that effect. And I thought, well, there's Father's Day, there's the solstice, there's a lot of things this weekend, and I was going to try to combine them all. And I was like, no, okay. I'm going to do a theme thing. I'm not in the community that celebrates Juneteenth by being in the community that received the freedom. So, how do I honor that in my own way? And that's how I came upon life-changing books, because I'm going to be sharing things that changed my life through reading them. So it's a Booktube, for sure, related video, but also centering the fact that I'm doing this because Juneteenth has inspired me. And I would love for people to have similar life-changing events or books that go in a positive manner and increase everyone's freedom around the world. Ta-da! So there we go. And that is why educating ourselves on these issues is important. Just ignore the typo. All right, if you're new here, subscribe to the channel. Welcome. Happy to see you. We've got folks in the chat to say hello to. Julie was here. My Margaret live alarm just sounded. I'm getting ready for today's fun. I very much appreciate that. That is such a hoot and gives me a big smile. I got ready. I didn't actually make a second cup of tea. I just made hot water and mint. I felt like it would be a little refreshing and not go cold and murky as fast. And let's see. I will be chatting about current events at the end. I sometimes do that, and I've got a few to mention today for the month of June, so we'll chat about that. So if you have current reads, feel free to pop them in the chat. I think this is Cat Paw saying they have the commercial jingle in their head too. I don't know. Oh no, they have a Margaret alarm and a Sam alarm, and that would be writer Sam Wicker, I'm pretty sure, which is awesome. I love that. Mojo, hi. A lurking mode while I format these books. Excellent. Soldier on, my friend. Great job. Yeah, breaking the block alarm. And I said yes. They just beat me to say that because I said I've been missing Sam on Sunday mornings with breaking the block. I just said B2B because I knew it was going to be hard to pronounce. And then Greg is here. Hello. The ultimate sign of success on Booktube when your subscribers set a specific alarm just for you. I mean, that is pretty special. And if anyone ever does a tag about making it on Booktube, that would be my hole in the wall, my line in the sand, if you will. Okay, and this one I don't have in my head. So the alarm song that Julie is saying is "Can't You Hear Me Knocking?" Rolling Stones from the Fingers album. And I'll have to listen to it so that I know. Hello. Mojo saying happy Juneteenth. I pulled her out of lurking mode because I went live. Thank you. Same to you, my dear. I was just in Dee Dee's Friday Reads chat, and they were having a lovely discussion of authors that they've met and varying reactions. So that was pretty spicy. Yes, good going at being made into an official holiday. Yes, exactly. Not going back. Mojo says, fall to my knees, get up and walk away if I was a man because woman still didn't have anything. Is that the lyrics to the song? It's still not jogging. I'll just have to listen to it. That's all right. Thank you for trying. Hello, Ven. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right. So we've educated ourselves on the issue. We're honoring Juneteenth and the movement for freedom all around the world, but especially here in my own United States. Oh, and just as a reminder, I have a 75% off sale on my ebooks. All the links for all the books are below. So if you know that you're missing one, I have a direct link to go to where you can find it until August. So that's just fun. I'm trying to remind myself to, if you don't say it, people won't know. Okay, so now let's describe how we're going to do this. I got links. I have 9 books that are life changers that I still have on the shelves. Some of them skipped notice because I didn't have a physical copy. I went through and I found 7 of them still on Bookshop, and 2 are out of print. So I'm going to go through chronologically and explain why these 9 books are important to me, how they changed my life or how they represent a change in my life, and give you like the chronological order, because that's how my mind works. So yeah. And then we'll discuss some current reads at the end. Yeah, and we could debate all we want about like the fight that has been on ever since then, like knowing you're free and then like proving and getting the benefits and like making sure other people respect it, because Lord, yes, that's been a long time. All right, so there is the link for the list of the 7 that I found on Bookshop if you are interested in pursuing any of them in a country that has bookshop.org. So the first one is a very small book. It's actually a map guide. So it's a book of maps, and in the beginning they do have text about like main sites. So it's the Paris map guide from I think 2000. And you might recognize this sticker. I think this is a Borders sticker. I'm pretty sure. So $8.95 back in 2001. I got this in 2001. You could see it says August 2001. And what's funny is I left in September 2001. So I got this right before I left for my study abroad experience. I went to Paris for my study abroad. I'd been there once before for a few days. I did a personal friend exchange with another girl the summer before my freshman year of college. So that was 99. And I didn't go anywhere by myself. We were chaperoned by her family. And so this is 3 years later. I'm an adult. I'm on my own. I travel over there. I'm in a program, of course, but I do a lot of walking and do a lot of exploring. This is sort of like my Bible. I just really enjoyed the I don't know, taste of adventure, the feel of the biting wind on my face. I can remember so many things from this time, both because I got pictures with my digital camera and because they were just vivid. They sort of stood out. I mean, I did a lot of traveling with my family before this, for sure. Also went to Europe with my family in 96. So we had like a bunch of different visits with people that we knew and doing like the main touristy things. But this was the first one that was on my own. And I've got a few little marks in here, but basically I kept it clean. And this helps me revisit the places that I knew because it's familiar. So whenever I'm, thinking about what was there or where did I go or what was around the corner, this has all the answers. So it's just a special meaning. And now that I'm going to go back to Paris for a few days with my sister and visit, I picked this up and I was like, wow, this is like a classic. This is like, it's 26 years old, but also it's just so clear. Some of the map books that I got in preparation for Ireland and England, the tiny type is unreadable. And I'm looking at this and it's still readable. I don't know what the difference is. You typed a little bigger, but I appreciate that. And 2001, Paris Map Guide by Penguin. They do have an updated version that's just like really thin, so you can actually carry it around with you without having to fold a bunch of shit and look like a terrible touristy American. So that is my first life-changing book, and it's available in the bookshop. So I'm glad that they still have that series. Just like colored my worldview after college. It's one of the best experiences I have from college. Number 2. This is from, I would say, the next year, although the next 2 are sort of interchangeable. 3 Black Skirts. I think I've talked about this one before. It's by Anna Johnson. She's like a magazine editor, and it's cute, right? You see the theme on the cover is a paper doll. It says, "All you need to survive," and it's got a wrench, right, in the purse. So the idea is that this is sort of like a starter book for a young woman. And I got this in college from my sister Michelle, who asked what I wanted. And I was like, I've been looking at that book in the store and I think it's going to be really good. And so she sent this to me. It talks about well-being. It talks about style, which I knew nothing about. Life skills, still don't know much about in terms of the wrench. Career, which I've been there and back again, as Bilbo says. Mood management, which I found really useful. Emotional rescue, spirit, and giving back. And that was probably the least applicable chapters because I was like beyond what she was talking about. But everything else was like, don't be ashamed of not knowing. This is just like fun stuff to talk about. And, try this and try that. And I know this person that did this. And just like putting in stereotypes about things that happen to you at this young adult age when you're just, I guess, a new adult and experiencing things on your own. And, like the ways of the world, I don't know that people necessarily have that taught to them. And it's like, I don't know, maybe this is my substitute for being in a sorority that, you're talking about all these subjects when maybe your friends and you did not, like job interview. And it is kind of like a magazine, like her actual calling, because she does the illustrations herself. And I just really liked her tone and the humor and the openness. And that really set the tone for trying things out on my own as an adult. And yeah, it takes a long time for those of us brought up a certain way, but, overcoming just like, I don't know, barriers of expectations and, conventions, I'll say. Let's say that. We're still working on that. So I looked up Anna Johnson. I think she had one other book, but she's Australian, so she's not really in the mix of people who will make more and more books, and I'm a little sad about that because I really liked her style. But that's the second book. Hello, Elaine. Welcome in. Book number 3 is sort of interchangeable because this was also during college. Now, this is not the copy because this is a paperback, and I picked up I still miss it. My friend got me this as a replacement because I was yammering on about missing it. But I had the hardback original edition, and it had Recycle 01. So I knew I got it in 2001 from Recycle Books in Campbell. And Daniela at Uncommon Reader was just at Recycle Bookstore. So I have this book from my legendary time living in Campbell just after I graduated college. So this is, sorry, that's my foot slipping on the little roller that I use under my feet. because it's barefoot day, because it's getting super hot again today. It's going to get like 87. So Rebecca Solnit. This is my first Rebecca Solnit book. Hands up if you've read a Rebecca Solnit book, and maybe a surfer icon if you've heard her name but have not yet read her. Okay, so Rebecca Solnit, this is Wanderlust, A History of Walking. And I read the book. It's from a used bookstore, and it was very dense. It was very hopping from one field to another. So it was someone who was very smart and knew a lot of different topics, and someone who was combing the relations between the topics that she knew in order to form her own opinions on things, and then like writing it in here. I love how this book is about the history of walking. I'm a big walker, but it's also like thinking while you're walking and musing and stravaging and flanning. I don't know how to do the French to the English ing. Being a flâneur. How about that? A flâneuse. So the pace of thoughts from the garden to the wild, lives of the streets, and past the end of the road. She's got all these different things talking about philosophy, public policy, Las Vegas for some reason, Paris, of course, walking clubs, land wars, the literature of walking, Wordsworth, the labyrinths and Cadillacs, the symbolic. So a lot of the stuff was over my head, and I've been meaning to reread it since then, but I do remember that it changed. It made me think about a person who thinks like that, because I don't think I've been exposed to many beforehand. It's always someone who is a depth researcher, an expert in their field. And this is what introduced me to like, well, I like knowing about lots of things and relating them rather than knowing about one. And so does she. So maybe there's a place to do that and like make that work for you instead of having to be pinned down into one discipline. So that was very exciting to me. Yeah, and here we are, right? Here we are. Hello, Jocelyn and Leslie. Hello, guys. Just passing my way through. I'm at book 3 of Life-Changing Books to honor Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth. And that is because the announcement of freedom on that June day in 1863 must have been amazing and changed everyone's life who heard it. So that is my related link here. So I'm going through book 4 is going to also be mixed up with college. It's right after college. 2004-ish. This is Wishcraft. Oh, let me see. Did anyone put icons in for Rebecca Solnit? No. Okay, so no one here has read Rebecca Solnit? Guys. Okay, remedy that. Please go out and pick one of the many books she's written. She's probably got like 20 books. She's got really skinny books too that are just like essays. Pick one up. I beg of you. Cat Boss says, my version of Three Skirts was when I was 18. Sex Tips for Girls by Cynthia Heimel, a classic from 1983. Oh my gosh. Laugh out loud, funny guide to life, confidence, style, and everything. Yes. And you have to sort of hide it behind like, oh, this is for fashion, right? Or sex tips. And then you're like, no, this is really the lowdown on everything that's important. And so think about these things and develop your own decisions. I love that. Thank you for sharing. That's a good one. 1983. Okay. All right. So speaking of a generation before me, there's Wishcraft. So I don't know if you guys know Barbara Sher. There's the name. Barbara Sher. So I picture the who is it that I'm actually picturing? The gal who sings in one of these 1970s music videos that was for kids. It's not Romper Room, but there's like some. Oh, I lost it. But yeah, okay. So Barbara Sher, she's before her time. She's sort of an avant-garde figure. This is another book that I picked up in a used bookstore in San Jose. Does it say? It doesn't say. I'm pretty sure this is probably from Recycle as well. Yeah. Or the one in Mountain View. I don't know. The Bay has a lot of great bookstores now as it did then. So this book, Wishcraft, is about how to get what you really want. It says a unique step-by-step plan to pinpoint your goals and make your dreams come true. And so this is the first book where it was like, it's not a textbook. It's not a, how to interview book. It's not a, it's definitely not a parachute book. It's the first book that I had that really was like, find out what you want to do and then plan backwards instead of just trying to slot yourself into what are your choices after college. Well, there's this job. And I really like that approach. So this is also where I first learned about barn raising. It's a metaphor concept for a group activity that takes as its literal symbol in the Midwest or, in the old country. I picture Scandinavia for some reason. You would have neighbors come together to put a barn together because a lot of people, many hands make light work. So a lot of people coming together for the day can get a lot of work done. And then you have a big feast and you have a party and you thank everyone. And this is the sort of thing that happens, once every 5 years for someone putting a new barn. And then when another person needs it in another few years, you go to their house and you sort of have a community understanding of helping each other from time to time. And it's not debt. It's not tracked. It's not weighted. And that is a thing that we yearn for in the capitalist society now. So barn raising as an idea, I think I got like the tiniest smidgen of community, but I was thinking at this point, 2004, more like, oh, my friends and the people I met in high school, college, networked, that kind of thing. And forming a community from that. And I think what's interesting is that it's grown a lot, my understanding, since this 22 years. And now when I think of like the climate crisis, because I wasn't really thinking about it back then, I was just thinking environmentalism, which is a lot more vague and nebulous. I think about community as people who I live near, right? It's in person, it's in real life, it's people I interact with at the businesses, the local shops that I patronize every week. And it's people that I know online, like you guys, and how I interact with them and how I treat people and how I want us to behave with each other. And how I think the solution to the climate crisis is us and our various circles coming to trust each other more than the governing structure, which is captured by the elite billionaires right now. So as soon as we have that tipping point, that moment when we all go, we're a lot more than them. Why are they telling us to go run off the cliff? So community started here with Wishcraft. The table of contents in this one, the care and feeding of human genius. Who do you think you are? Wishing. So there's a style search, there's a goal search, there's a hard times or the power of negative thinking. So that's when I remember when you think, what's the worst thing that could happen? And then what's the worst thing that could happen after that? And basically, if you're a worrywart, it was this exercise to get you to write down the worst thing that you can think of. And like, well, that's not that bad. Like if you actually go through it and think of it instead of just like worry about it in your head, there's ways to go, oh, well, how can you manage that risk? And how can you get help with that issue or stuff like that? So I think this is really before its time. Plotting the path to your goal, brainstorming, barn raising, working with time. She's just so positive. She's so cheerful. She's so funny. It's really like having a coach in a book. And so I love that I have like an original of this, and I hope it doesn't fall apart because this is another one that I would go back and revisit. I used to revisit a lot, and now I haven't done it in 12, 15 years, but that really made me go about my career search, my life choices in a certain way. Yes. Let's just drop in here. I don't know what that's about. Greg says, I know about Rebecca Solnit, but have read none. So you should put a surfer emoji in there. I need to find Monte Cristo. I don't know. Love Refuse to Choose. Yep, Refuse to Choose is a good one. It's a later book. Giant axe wielding teddy bear on a book cover. Yeah, getting sidetracked. I like it. Okay, so that's 4. Now we're on book 5. We're into, okay, we do a little time jump, and now we're at like 2010. Okay, so this is, what does it say? All right, look at that. Another sticker from Borders. Borders was still around in 2010, right? I think so. Maybe this was like 2009. But anyway, like a 5-year jump. And now we're coming at you from Washington, D.C. And this book I've definitely recommended before. It's called Without Reservations. It's by Alice Steinbach. And I picked this up because it was travel literature. And basically, it's a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist who lived in the Baltimore area, but I didn't know. And she sort of has this arrested point in her life where she's like, I can't do anything the way I've done it before. I need to change. And we can relate to this. So I'll read you the blurb. For years, I'd made my own choices, paid my own bills, shoveled my own snow. But somehow she had become, that was a quote in the first person, but somehow she had become dependent in quite another way. Quote, I had fallen into the habit of defining myself in terms of who I was to other people and what they expected of me. End quote. But who was she away from the people and things that defined her? In this exquisite book, Steinbach searches for the answer to the question in some of the most beautiful and exciting places in the world. Paris, where she finds a soulmate. Oxford, where she takes a course on the English village. Sorry, my mouth. Milan, where she befriends a young woman about to be married. Beautifully illustrated with postcards from her journeys, this revealing and witty book transports you into a fascinating inner and outer journey, an unforgettable voyage of discovery. Does it have a year on the sticker? 11, travel narrative. I can't really tell. It might be 2011. 731. No, 2003. 2003? Did I get this really early and then take that long to read it? I don't know. But $13.95. $13.95. For the longest time, books were 13, 14, 15. And then they crept up to 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And now you pay $20 for paperback. All right. So why was this life changing? I think this is what sort of like, let me think the dates wise. I was trying to organize this based on dates. And now when I see 2003 on here, I'm like, is that when I read it? Because what I remember is really being inspired by it when I was living in DC, which is like 2008. So I was traveling after grad school, 2009, 2011, 2013, 2015. It's like every couple of years. And then I started, I did a driving trip to Nova Scotia in 2012. I did my first trip to Scotland in 2011. And those were big deals to me because I don't think I'd ever, like organized, initiated, gone after my own trip. And this is the sort of vibe this is giving me. She writes beautifully about the interior changes that mirror and sort of symbolically pace the changes of someone going on a trip and seeing the scenery change. And meeting people, getting out of the box that you've created for yourself, the individualism, not in a bad way. Like, often American individualism goes off the deep end, but this is a feminine experience of that, which I think she was married, she had kids, she got divorced, and then had lived a long time with a second career and done really well at it, and then was like, what am I living for, right? So same sort of question that I was asking last month. And what is the purpose? What is my anchor? What is my nugget? What is the thing that is connected to everything that I'm doing? And I really liked how she wove it together. It was probably a much more chaotic process, but this was very inspiring as a writer who traveled. I think when I read it, I wanted to be a travel writer, travel journalist, because travel blogging was all the rage right then. But it's deeper than that. It's like her life-changing experiences as well. She came out with the second one, which is also good, but this is like the big bang. So highly recommend Alice Steinbach. And she passed away, unfortunately, right as I discovered where she lived. So I never got to like go out and try and meet her. That would have been cool. Let's see. I miss Borders in the UK. Yeah, Borders. It was good. The movies, the music, the books, having it in one place. It was a good option. Did you guys have Tower? We had a Tower that was basically the same thing. Tower Records that had books and movies and music. One Room in a Castle by Karen Connolly. Book about life, travel, and which I feel gave me permission to write the way I always had, and it being okay. My desert island book for decades. That's a great recommendation. I don't think I've heard this one before. One Room in a Castle. I'm going to look it up. Letters from Spain, France, and Greece. There's no cover. Does that mean it's backordered? It is not backordered. But buy new or used from an indie through our partner, Biblio. Interesting. $15 to $20. Interesting. Maybe they have it in the library. Okay, that sounds really good, Cat Paw. So I'm going to put that on my little back burner to look up in my availability. And MJ says, my childhood dream was to be a writer who travels. And there you go. But it was more that I could live anywhere and write my books. Yeah. That's freedom. That's the reflection of the day. I love that. Yeah. I was discussing this the other day, and the fact that like I see myself from the outside when I imagine my future. And I don't know if that's what everyone else does. But when I said it to the therapist, she said, you don't envision yourself as the person, you see yourself from outside. And I was like, yeah. Whenever I go, oh, that would be a cool thing, what pops up in my head is an image of not necessarily me, but like a person doing the thing. And then I gauge my reaction as to whether it's like, is it cool? Is it me? Is it realistic? But I'm never in the skin of the person doing the thing, which is, I don't know. It seemed different. I never imagined that it would be different for different people. But Ben says, I have heard of Tower. Don't remember it here, though. Wouldn't shock me if there was one in London at some point. Yeah, probably. The London branch. All right, so that's 5. Yes. Now we're on to number 6. Number 6. What year do I pin this as? Okay, 2012. So this is 2012. This was an expensive book because it's an academic press. So it was $18.95. Look at that handwritten price tag. Highland Settler, academic book, right? It's by Charles W. Dunn. That's how you can tell. Look at that. Oh, it's very glossy. Sorry about that, everybody. A portrait of the Scottish Gael in Cape Breton and eastern Nova Scotia. So you've got archival photo. You've got tiny author name down at the bottom. You definitely know it's a research book. It also looks kind of like a facsimile because the font is so thick. So it's a bit odd. I think it's from like 1990 originally. I just looked it up. 1953, 1991. So it's originally from 53 written, but then 91 is when the reprint came out. And I was in Cape Breton in 2012 and came across this. And, you know, I tell you, I like to find the forgotten moments in history and explore them. And this is probably the single most interesting thing that brought on Remnants, my trilogy of historical fiction books, as a family saga, because in this, and you'll see I turned down lots of corners there. There's cultural aspects of the immigrant community. There's religious aspects, virtue and vice, Gallic and print. The old tradition flourishes. We've got songs. We've got lots of Gallic in here. The folk culture transplanted. And this is where I got the sense that, like, Cape Breton is basically to Scotland what Quebec is to France, right? It's New France. It's New Nova Scotia. And the people that landed there, no matter where they were on the social scale or how they made it, in what condition they made it, they recreated where they came from in such a protective, defensive way that it has sort of almost been frozen in time and kept the traditions of the migratory period much more than the original country did. So France sort of like evolved on with its politics and culture. Scotland has evolved on with its politics and culture and like accent and you know, music and all these things. But if you go to Cape Breton, you still hear fiddle tunes from like 1700s, that sort of thing. And so that really sparked my imagination. I was going around Cape Breton because I had been to Scotland in 2011, really enjoyed it, thought, well, I can drive to Nova Scotia, so let's do that and see if there's like some links. And then just, I think that's where that sort of fire built up of like, well, there's this thing that happened in 1822, and what about if okay, where would I put them if I was going to talk about a family, and how would I do this if I was going to write a book? And that's where it started, right? So this is like the start of the author journey. Some dry old archival photos in a gift shop somewhere in Nova Scotia, and just imagining history and, you know, having the compassion to think about someone else's shoes, being in someone else's shoes and living that life and thinking, I think this is interesting. I think people should know about this. And 2012 is when I started writing the book. I think maybe 2011 because it was like blossoming. And 2011 to 2012, I moved across country in 2013. So I drafted Memories Hostage, my first book, which is like a mystery setup in Northern England, which Ven has read. And I did that as like a practice. I was like sort of thinking about writing fiction. Like I've never thought about doing that before. So I did that for a year. And then when I sort of finished the book, I was like wrapping it up. I thought, this is a book. I just wrote a book. So what should I do with it, right? And so, you know, this sort of stuff comes in and I start going, what if I did this? And what if I did that? And what sort of thing would this open up? Am I going to be a travel writer or am I going to be a fiction writer? Can I do both? The sky's the limit, you know, just like dreaming, full on dreaming, you know? So that was a good time. Kappa is remembering, yes, there was a Tower Records at Piccadilly. Excellent. Hello, Chexy lady. Kiana, welcome. Happy Juneteenth. I'm on book 7. What year are we up to now? Black Ghost of Empire. Okay, so life-changing books. I've got a YouTube channel. I started the YouTube channel in 2020, 21, 22, 23. So this is 4 years in? 4 years into my Booktube journey. And I read this book, Black Ghost of Empire by Chris Manjapra. I actually read it as an audiobook. Where'd it go? There we go. We love Libro.fm. They're the happy, sweet-smelling purveyor of audiobooks. It doesn't stink to high heaven. Anyway, so they gave me an advanced listening copy, and the framing of this just sort of blew me away. So, Black Ghost of Empire, the long death of slavery and the failure of emancipation. So this is the sort of thing where you're like, why didn't I learn about that in school? So not only is emancipation the wrong word to want in this fight for freedom, rather you want, what's the other one? Emancipation or, so now I'm going to forget it because it's 3 years ago. Let's see. That's probably in the chapter title. So let me read some of those. Emancipation of the Void. Making Africans Pay Gradually in the American North. Punishing the Black Nation in Haiti. British Anti-Slavery and the Emancipation of Property. Rewarding perpetrators and abandoning victims across the Caribbean. From Civil War to the Dirty War Against Black Lives. Global Jim Crow and Emancipation in Africa. So that's the last one with like independence movements. Let's see. Of course, I haven't reread the physical version, so I don't have any pages turned down. What's the word I'm trying to think of, y'all? Abolition. Duh. Okay, so the reason that is a big deal is that emancipate means to like, it has something to do with your hands. It's like letting someone go, basically. And so that is still characterizing someone's freedom as a privilege and a benefit that another person is conferring on them, which is not cool. And abolition is actually saying the institution of slavery itself is horrible and we abolish it, we destroy it, we blow it up. It has no place in American society on Juneteenth, but in like global society, right? When we were doing all these freedom fights in the 18th centuries and 19th centuries. So yeah, so that was like just a first vocabulary thing that I had not been aware of, not having studied Latin. And then the other thing that this book was really good at doing is pointing to comparative revolutions. So all we learn about in school is the American Revolution and Civil War, and not really clearly how slavery figures into those. Maybe a little bit, but that was only the British Empire's version of slavery. And we don't learn about the British Empire in the Caribbean, which is a totally different animal. It's a totally different system. I read about it in this, but also in Vanessa Riley's book, where she's talking about a Black woman who is growing up a slave. It's fiction, but she does tons of research, and that's in the 1600s on Demerara. I can hear it in her narrator's voice. And what she goes through and the empire she builds up and everything. So it's just so different, and we don't learn about that, and it's right next door. And then there's the Spanish Empire, there's the French Empire, there's I think it's the Dutch is the other one. But it's just like, we know there were land grabs from all the modern European powers. Oh, Portuguese is the other one. And we know there's a legacy of that in the Caribbean because, you know, one of the islands I wanted to visit at one point was Saint Martin, which is like half French, half Dutch speaking. Why is that? Because that's a truce, I guess, that came between France and the Netherlands, and they're clowning for sovereignty. So there's all these things where you're like, oh yeah, that, why is that? And you never asked because you didn't know. So for people who are wondering about stuff like that, or don't want to be caught flat-footed by someone in a debate, I would really recommend Black Coast of Empire, because it gives you a big context, the sort of sweeping view, and also the comparative view of different empires in the Western Hemisphere, and brings it up to 20th century. Just really good. Really, really good. All right. So thank you, Libro.fm. Woohoo. And go Chris Manjapra. All right. We're talking bookstores. B. Dalton. All right. Book number 8 is, this is a really heavy one. And this is one I read in physical form, so you see all the tabs. This is one that has its own standalone review video and actually did pretty good. This is when I started doing Climathon. I Want a Better Catastrophe. Damn it. This is by Andrew Boyd. This is, so I read it in 2023. I think that's actually also when it came out. Yeah, 2023. This is a new release. This was like $30. $30. It started out as 28, or no, it's 28 now. Maybe they downgraded the quality of the book. But this is on the list, the bookshop list in the description. I got this because it was recommended at the place where I was launching my own book. And it's such a good climathon book. It's not for beginners. It's for people who are feeling hopeless and despairing and unmotivated. Because that's where I was. In 2023. So I read this, I think, in October 2023. No, 2024. Empire was 2023. Sorry, I looked at my list wrong. I was like, I got this after the election. That is true. 2024. That's why. In December. So after the election is when I had this like total, how could we do that? We are so screwed. Another 4 years of Trump is going to murder our planet. What even are we doing here, people? And, we're only a year and a quarter in, and that is proving to be true. But this, at the time, it just blew my mind. Okay, so Andrew Boyd is an activist, and he basically had the same experience earlier. And he was totally depressed and was like, what do we do now? Like, nothing makes any difference. And then he went on a sort of journey, his own journey, as well as interviewing other people who are climate activists in different ways, right? So they all have different approaches. They're all like small is beautiful, or they're like, we're building the world we cannot yet see, or, we have to have faith in the future, and the perspective of having grandchildren and the seventh generation. They all have different lenses, but what he does is he shows basically where the hope is. And that was really helpful to me in December 2024 and since when I was talking about the book, navigating the climate crisis. So basically what he's saying is like, yes, it is true that we are going to have some really bad things happen. They are already happening. They're going to get worse. They're not going to stop until we actually do something drastic. And even then, they're not going to stop. We are going down the rapids in a kayak. But do we have a paddle? Like, is there something that we could do to give ourselves a paddle? I want a better catastrophe is the feeling of heading down those rapids and being like, can I do something to make this less bad on myself, on my community, on my family? Give me a fucking paddle. So that's what I would say about this book. And yeah, you may not get along with everyone's viewpoint. I think he does a good job of getting diverse viewpoints. But you may find someone where you really vibe with them. And then you could go find their book because they're all people who are active in the space. It's great. I think one or two may have passed away at this point, but oh man, it touches on a lot of things. Oh, and in case Mike is watching this, I really appreciated this that he put in. Look at this. It's a flow chart for navigating our climate predicament. It's a fold out flow chart, which I love. And since Mike is the Booktube spreadsheet king, I just thought I'd highlight that. But just really good terms and people and, graphics and poems. And it's kind of like all we can save. But like the point that he was making was one that I had not grappled with. And so that is why this is a life changer. Number 8. Well done, Andrew Boyd. Kiana says, I need that book. I think you're talking about that one because that's the first one while you were here. There's a 10-inch hole at the bottom of the kayak. Yeah, there's that too. Thank you. I just remember that I never read Inconvenient Truth. Yeah, well, we're past that now. I would not recommend going back to read it. I think it's definitely out of date at this point. And it's not as sharp. It'll come across as really like gentle and mealy-mouthed at this point because we're so far past that. That's 2000, right? 1999. So 27 years. Yeah, we haven't done much. All right. So the last one, my book number 9, y'all have heard me talk about. It's a book from this year. So this is a 2026 read, Hospicing Modernity. So this is by Vanessa Machado de Oliveira, who I talked about recently. I talked about on my talk with Tasman a couple weeks ago for Climathon. Another great Climathon book. So the title, if I can explain, Hospicing Modernity. Hospice is when you enter care that is just palliative at the end of your life because there's nothing anyone else can do. There's no medicines or whatever for whatever you have. And so you bring your family around you, you say your last things, you get your will in order and everything, because you know you're going to die soon. And modernity in this context is encapsulating modern civilization, right? Modernity is how we think, how we barter, how we trade, how we treat each other, how we are educated, how we treat marginalized populations, capitalism. So modernity, technology, all that stuff. And so when she puts these two words together, it's like, okay, it's saying this civilization is not going to make it. How are we going to help it to bed, let it get its affairs in order, listen to the lessons it still has to give, and then prepare for what's to come afterwards? And I know this is when I might scare some people, but like, this is bringing the world we want and cannot yet see into being, right? This is like, it's not manifesting, it's like preparing for future generations, because I probably won't see it, but I want to help get some of it started. And so she's I would say like a gentle toned writer, but also matter of fact, and like someone who's been critiqued in the theoretical academic space enough so that they make a very good case. So Machado de Oliveira is someone who travels. She's an activist. She used to be in education theory and like curriculum development, trying to think about in her native Brazil, like what would we design for a curriculum? And she would talk to people from developed countries who were helping to put together a project, like an aid project. And she'd be like, what? That is not going to help at all. Like, so she saw this culture clash, and that's part of her exposure to modernity. And that started her on the journey to like, there's something deeper going on here, and I'm going to investigate. And so she spent the last 20 years investigating, and she visits her community in Bolivia, which is an indigenous community, but she's sort of half a foot in their community and half a foot in the global community. So she goes between, and in that position, it's making her a very good person for the voice to pass through. I'm not sure if there's a different word for that, but something peace. Speak peace? What's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, yeah, so I really appreciated her viewpoint. It was a bigger level and a more consistent, overarching structural level than I'd seen before. Not just education, but like coming into contact with anything, modernity. That's like everything that lives around us, right? Everything that we've made, everything that humans create. And sometimes, from time to time, I get these moments where I'm like, what would it be like to not have X? I don't know. There's so many things. Name the latest annoyance from the high-tech, late-stage capitalist society we live in. I was just reading an article on TikTok. It was the Oregonian, I think, talking about the council trying to do something with the modernization of trains so that we don't have the situation where there are 3 points in the southeast where the trains cross streets and the streets have to stop for the trains going by. And because the trains are so ungodly long, people end up stuck there for hours unless they do as I did a couple weeks ago and say, march down to the beginning of the train tracks and say, hey, to the first driver, I want to direct traffic so that we can back up and go away because it's been half an hour and they're not moving. The train was not moving. So it's a long train. It'll take a long time to get through, but it's not even moving. So whatever the fuck was happening there happens every day. And they were trying to do some modernization scheme. But the thing is that Union Pacific rail line and yard is attempting to merge with Norfolk. So it would have one big rail company that spans the whole country. And obviously it's a monopoly. We have no more teeth for antitrust legislation. I wish Lena Khan had more of a role still. But just that to say, that is one really annoying thing that, like, if we could have antitrust legislation, you know what? That would trickle down. That would trickle down. We would have smaller trains. We would have better regulations. We would not have toxic spills and derailments and just like traffic where people are idling and wasting gas and creating air pollution. Like, it solves so many problems. Let's do that. But yeah, it's not that easy. But you know, small things and lots of projects. So facing humanity's wrongs and the implications for social activism, like speaking to the choir. So I really love that, and I'm still digesting how I can work better in that sphere and further that mission, because I think she's amazing. And she has a podcast episode on Planet Critical. So if you want to hear more about it without reading the book, on YouTube, Planet Critical is the channel and podcast, and you look up Vanessa Machado de Oliveira, and she has an episode with Rachel Donald. So it's great. It's great. Julie says a life-changing book for me would be my Sociology 1 textbook. Oh my gosh. This class was my first as an adult student, and it opened my mind in such a big way. All right. You were talking to the daughter of 2 sociology majors, so applause. That's amazing. That's so cool. Sociology. Yeah, it's a good field. Cat Paw says to Julie, my flatmate back in the early 2000s went to uni to study sociology. I read some of her books and proofread her essays because I found them interesting. They're so interesting. That's where we get into like urbanism and trying to make communities and neighborhoods and towns better. That's why I'm going to this like Strong Towns organization meetings and trying to get involved, because it's really like the grassroots way to do sociology. You think, what if we put a bench at this bus station? What could follow on from that? Well, people might not elect not to take the buses. What if we spaced the bus stations farther apart? They would get faster service. They would get more frequent service. People wouldn't complain so much. There's just like all these small things that you go, okay, how does that affect the system? I love that about sociology. I remember when I was in the US, says Ven, and I was shocked when we stopped for a train crossing the road by the size of it. Oh yeah, the really, really long trains. Yeah. There's a really interesting backstory about how we used to have trains in freight, and then they got a monopoly, and then trucking got in after World War II because it was cheaper, gas prices being what they were. And so then we started shipping everything by trucks. And now that's a monopoly because of the buy-ups and mergers or whatever. And so now we've got 2 whole systems that are just like in gridlock and monopolies. And it's like, ugh. Hello, Diane. Yes. Oh, it's almost 11. You'll have to do a replay. Yeah. Hi, Constance. Welcome, guys. So that is the whole hour on my 9 life-changing books. I hope that was interesting. I hope maybe I inspired you to talk about your life-changing books or read one of these. As a reminder, the links to all of those books are down in the description, or they will be afterwards. I looked up them all. 7 of them are on bookshop.org, and 2 of them that are not available, I found another outlet that's indie if you want to order from them. And one of them is from Canada, but it's the Nova Scotia one, obviously. So yeah, that was fun. Current reads. Go, everybody. Let's share current reads. The banner is here. Oh, no. It's going to make me turn off the timer. Here we go. Okay, let's talk about current reads. This is one of the books I got for Portland Book Week, The Art of Simple Living by Shunryu Masuno. And he's a Zen monk talks about simple living. I've had a couple that I've resonated with, but I'm about 60% of the way through, and it's okay. It's good. It's nice it's a nice calming read before bed. So I do that. Or in the morning. This one, The Evenings by Gerard Rev, who's the Dutch author. This is my pride read because he's the first openly gay Dutch author. He's writing, I think, immediately post World War II. This is from 1947. Yeah. And so it's translated. It's for pride. But it's also kind of boring. He's obsessing about the weather and counting how his days are spent and talking about his dreams, which don't really make sense. So some of it's funny, but a lot of it's just kind of like, and so I don't know if I'm going to like this one by the end. We will see. I think I'm going to finish it. We'll see. I don't know. This is the one I just started. I was talking about in Dee Dee's chat. It's called The Midnight Taxi by Yosha Gunasekera. So that's a Sri Lankan name, Sri Lankan author, Sri Lankan main character who's a taxi driver in New York City and meets someone, and then that person is murdered, and then she is the suspect. So she has to like use her true crime podcast knowledge to get herself off the hook and get justice for the person who's murdered. So that sounds fun. It was a hot potato item at the library. So I think it just came out in 2026 and it's already like very well loved. So I'm guessing it's going to be like a good page turner. This one is moving quite slowly. This is The Rosemary Tree by Elizabeth Goudge. I like Elizabeth Goudge's style because she gets very like 1960s version of emo, like just flowery descriptions and interior life and this hopefulness that I think we don't really have in our writing anymore that would totally be lampooned by all the lit fic people. And so I like this usually, but it's just a little much right now. So I'm having trouble making my way through that. We might put that one down. We'll see. This is another one I just started. This is a gift. It's Saving the World from Julia Alvarez. And this is historical fiction. Alma Hubner is researching a new novel. She finds her real story in a little known but staggering historical footnote. Sounds familiar. The Royal Expedition of the Vaccine. In 1803, Don Francisco Balmis embarked on a 2-year sea voyage to rescue the New World from smallpox. Accompanying him were 22 orphan boys acting as live carriers and their guardian, Isabel Sandales y Gomez. As Alma digs deeper into Isabel's life, she finds her own power to commit and act as life-changing as Isabel's. Julia Alvarez. She's the one who wrote How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents. So I haven't read her before, and the first bit was like really good. It may have been because it spoke directly to me. I won't bother reading the first paragraph, but if you read the first paragraph, like, wow, someone's in my head. But yeah, so there's a dual timeline. There's an author in the main timeline, and then this 1803 voyage. So I'm pretty excited about that one. And then the one that I'm waiting for, that if I put down a couple of the current reads that I'm not excited about, I may pick up for Pride Month, is this cute, cozy, The Keeper of Magical Things by Julie Leong. So this is an Asian author, and she's got a sapphic fantasy romance. And doesn't it look cute? It looks very cozy. There's a dragon in there, a cat dragon, Lane. So I may pick this up instead and just read it in a day because that's how we roll. How about everyone else? What are you reading? Yeah, Diane had to hustle. Kiana, I just finished Kin by Tayari Jones and loved it. I've heard everyone loves it, so it should go on my list. I'm glad you did too. That's great. Currently reading The Widow by John Grisham. Whew, there's a throwback. John Grisham. Nice. Julie, still reading The Count of Monte Cristo. 61% through my physical copy. Well done. Mojo is reading Dark Stations by D.P. Martinez. Is that an indie book? Is that something you can recommend to Ven, or is it to be determined? Let's see. Cat Paw says, finished The Night in Question by Susan Fletcher. I've read Susan Fletcher. I read a book she had set in Scotland that was like a middle grade. Refreshing perspective. Think you'd like it. Now reading something. Spindrift by M. Pennard. Heard of her? Yeah, Stormwreck and Spindrift. It's the orange book. It's the orange book. Thank you. I hope you like it. Yeah, Cat Paw, that Spindrift sounds like a life-changing book, doesn't it, though? Thank you, Greg. Hello, Eva. We're almost done here. I'm just listening to everyone's current reads. So Cat Paw says, maybe not life-changing, but very good. Yeah, same. Don't forget to poop the like button. Hey, Jim. Nice to see you. Eva says, just got back from the local Juneteenth parade and festival. It's so hot. I almost melted. Oh, my God. All right. Well, I hope you have something icy in your hands because, oof. Oh, and what has helped me is like just dunking a bandana in cold water and putting it around your neck. So front, back, and then just rotate. Cold water has helped. Diane says, current reads. I am reading super freaking slow this month for whatever reason and getting on my own nerves. How to Read a Book by Adler and The Keening. Paralandra, number 2 by C.S. Lewis. Is that 3 books? Did you just squish 3 books in one? Is that How to Read a Book, The Keening, and then Paralandra, which I think is like a fantasy. Nice. Well, dude, you're reading 3 books at once, so that would explain why maybe it's a little slower. Good to see you. It's still reading a YA. Eva's reading One of Us is Lying. That's a good title. Sounds like a thriller. That's awesome, Julie. The Count of Monte Cristo, I think that's about, yeah. Jim reading Obsidian Murders by Nicole Brona, who's another booktuber / author tuber. So there you go. Nice. I saw you had a piece of obsidian in your last video, or what looked like obsidian. Is it really obsidian? That's pretty cool. Where did you get that? Paranormal mystery is that genre. Sounds so familiar. Yeah. I mean, I have a sister who has an M name, so I'm not the only one. TBD. It's an indie on chapter 2. Oh, okay. So early days. Gotcha. Ven says, I have been coerced into listening to a dark romance and it's not going well. Oh, and a novella called The Stars and The Stage. LGBTQ vampire indie romance. Could be good. You never know. Are you going to finish the dark romance? I think you're a finish no matter what kind of person. So I'm sorry. Yes. 3 different books. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. How to Read a Book is good. All right. So you've got another person seconding your choice. Hello, Dylan. Is that H. Obrecht? Or maybe H is part of the other names. I don't know, but welcome. Eva says, thriller described as The Breakfast Club meets Pretty Little Liars. Okay. I think I've heard of it, but there's a lot of books with lying in the title these days, so I may be confusing it. Dylan, currently reading the Bible. All right. That is not a book for this category today, but Diane says, Eva, One of Us is Lying is so good. Got it. There's a TV series too, just like Pretty Little Liars. It was a piece of obsidian from a local market. That's so cool. You just find a piece of obsidian. Nice. Eva really enjoying the young adult thriller. Awesome. Yes to the nod to the Breakfast Club. Sweet. And says, I don't DNF. Yeah, that's what I thought. I'm trying to understand the appeal and failing. Well, yeah. Who is it? Oh, I was just watching Trevor Noah and Mehdi Hassan. So Trevor Noah has a podcast with his friend Eugene. And he says, what now? Or something like that. It's a new podcast for like a year. And he had Mehdi Hassan on. And why did I bring that up? Trying to understand the appeal and failing. What was the link? What was the connection? There's too many things going on in my head right now. Oh, well, I don't remember. It was a good podcast. They were heated about some stuff that I didn't understand, but that's fine. Yep. Awesome. Ven says, maybe it's because the main characters are billionaires as much as all the things they keep doing. Okay. Yeah. Trying to understand the appeal and failing. Yeah, I can't, my brain is not backtracking to tell me what that was about. Monique, Love that podcast. Isn't it so good? It's usually 2 hours or more, but I think Mehdi said he has to leave to catch a train, so it was only an hour and a half. That was really good. I'm trying to remember, and I can't remember it, but it was good. There are so many great books. If one isn't working for you, I DNF it and start another. I know. I had like 4 books on the go, and 3 of them were not really working. And I was like, why am I doing this? Why is it all at the same time? Because usually, maybe it's one or... So I may be putting 2 of them down. We'll see. We'll see. Next Wednesday. What is it? 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. June 24th. What do I have scheduled? Oh, it's a wrap up, right? It's a wrap up. So I've got this many so far. I just finished a bunch a couple days ago. So if any of these are of interest to you, there's some indies in there. There's some Climathon. There's a graphic novel. There's some good stuff in there. Ooh, and just as a teaser, we found tentative date, July 6th. And Ben and I are going to talk about this fascinating economics book. It's actually what people are blurbing it as Wolf of Wall Street with a moral compass. So it's not quite American Psycho, which is good because I don't like that shit, but it is very exciting. So it's not economicsy, if that makes sense. You've said sometimes I finish books before their end. I like that way of looking at it. That's cute. Yes, thank you. Same. Happy Juneteenth. And Julie is signing off. Things to do before watching the U.S. match World Cup. Sweet. Well, take care and happy reading. Happy watching, Julie. I love that. Thank you, Diane. And happy Juneteenth, everyone else. Thank you for coming here. Wednesdays and Fridays, 10 a.m. Pacific. I do book reviews, wrap-ups. I do book tags, which are always fun. I do readathons. I'm hosting Climathon, so climate activism is always at the forefront. And yeah, lots of great discussions of community online and offline. So I appreciate you being here to help me process these things through books, mainly. So yeah, we love it. We are against Australia. Ooh, that's going to be a hard one for Booktube. Sweet. And of course, I'm so happy. I hope some of these life-changing books for me reach people out there because they definitely had an effect. All right, everyone. Happy reading. Take care of yourselves. Happy Juneteenth. I will see you next Wednesday.